Nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, saw this coming. One moment, T.I. was moving like the untouchable king of Atlanta, a man whose career had survived scandals, street rivalries, federal cases, and every twist of the music industry, yet still maintained the aura of invincibility. He carried himself with the confidence of someone whose crown could never slip, someone who had weathered storms that would have toppled others. And then, almost overnight, the foundation he had built began to crack, not through rival rappers, law enforcement, or industry gatekeepers, but through a wave of voices he could neither control nor ignore. The pressure came from women from his own city, Atlanta, voices emerging one after another, sharing stories, posting evidence, recounting moments that were never meant to leave private spaces. These were not faceless online personas or fabricated accounts. Many of these women had real, tangible connections to Atlanta's music and social scene. Their insights carried the weight of authenticity, with details so precise that longtime fans paused, wondering how these people could possibly know such specifics. What began as scattered posts soon snowballed, creating a wave that felt simultaneously coordinated and long overdue. These accounts weren't minor grievances or fleeting complaints. They resurfaced allegations of misconduct stretching back years, detailing instances of coercion, intimidation, and behavior that violated trust. Each post added another layer to a growing picture, and as the number of voices increased, the momentum became undeniable. The narrative shifted from speculation to something that could no longer be ignored, moving beyond Atlanta's borders and into the national spotlight. And then, just as the storm seemed to reach a critical point, 50 Cent entered the fray, not passively, not from a distance, but aggressively, amplifying clips, reposting videos, and adding his own commentary. Every post, every reaction from him was strategic, turning a conversation that might have remained localized into a nationwide spectacle. Old interviews resurfaced, archival footage was dissected, and private situations that had once remained buried in the shadows were exposed to intense public scrutiny. With his involvement, what could have remained a tense but contained discussion became a firestorm impossible to control. To understand why this had such explosive impact, you have to look at who T.I. was to Atlanta and to the industry at large. Clifford Harris Jr., better known as T.I., wasn't just another rapper. He had built his reputation as the voice of the South, the king of Atlanta, a man whose journey from street hustler to platinum-selling artist represented resilience, ambition, and a raw authenticity. He emerged from a rough childhood, navigated the perils of Atlanta streets, turned credibility into mainstream success, and gradually reshaped his image as a mature, thoughtful figure, speaking about family, responsibility, mentorship, and personal growth. For many, he wasn't just making music. He was embodying a story of evolution and redemption. On the surface, that narrative was compelling. He had survived federal weapons charges, navigated the complexities of Hollywood and the music industry, and continued to mentor younger artists while presenting himself as a devoted family man. From the outside, it appeared he had left the recklessness of his past behind, emerging wiser, more measured, and more self-aware. Many people believed in this transformation because it appeared consistent over years of interviews, public appearances, and social commentary. But beneath the polished image, quieter whispers always lingered, off-the-record accounts, occasional slips, and vague stories that hinted at a more complicated reality. These murmurs never fully gained traction, largely because T.I. maintained tight control over his public persona, especially in Atlanta, where cultural loyalty and subtle deterrence kept many potential voices silent. That carefully maintained control began to crumble with the rise of social media. Platforms once used primarily for promotion evolved into tools of direct storytelling, allowing individuals to share experiences without gatekeepers or intermediaries. Once one woman spoke up, it emboldened others. Soon, a pattern allegedly emerged, recurring themes of power imbalances, subtle coercion, and experiences that left lasting emotional and psychological impacts. Meanwhile, tensions with 50 Cent added another layer of intensity. While their rivalry was largely competitive and understated, it had always carried undertones of strategic one-upmanship. 50 Cent, known for his sharp instincts and ability to amplify situations when timing is right, leaned into the narrative, ensuring the story's reach expanded far beyond Atlanta. Whether opportunistic or strategic, his involvement magnified the fallout. As the first public allegations gained traction, the response from T.I. proved insufficient to contain the momentum. Clips circulated rapidly. Old interviews were scrutinized. Footage that had once seemed harmless was reevaluated under a new lens. The alignment of timing raised questions. Why did multiple women speak out simultaneously? Why did this coincide with 50 Cent's decision to engage aggressively? Many observers speculated whether the events were organic or orchestrated, but regardless of intent, the effect was undeniable. Attempts to manage the narrative through past denials, public statements, or efforts to pivot to new projects were quickly overshadowed by the sheer volume of voices. For supporters, it raised uncomfortable questions about loyalty to a hometown hero. For critics, it represented a long-overdue reckoning, where long-standing power dynamics were finally brought into the light. The situation forced a broader conversation about celebrity accountability, consent, and the limits of personal privacy in a digital age. The fallout was particularly damaging because it struck at the core of T.I.'s meticulously crafted image. Years of positioning himself as a thoughtful, mature elder statesman were challenged. Allegations resurfaced in ways that reframed his narrative entirely, prompting fans to reevaluate both individual incidents and the broader arc of his public persona. Supporters found themselves split. Some dismissed the wave as opportunistic or fueled by rivalries. Others saw consistent patterns, arguing that years of silence and image management had masked uncomfortable truths. 50 Cent's amplification of the situation raised the stakes even further. His reposts, commentary, and hints of potential projects, including a documentary, ensured the story remained alive and evolved in real time. His history of transforming personal conflicts into public spectacle made his involvement feel almost inevitable. Whether opportunistic or deliberate, the results were clear. What had begun as a local discussion became a national debate, challenging T.I.'s legacy and forcing the public to reconcile his past and present. As the dust refuses to settle, Atlanta finds itself grappling with both the human and cultural dimensions of the situation. Residents who revered T.I. as a symbol of the city's rise feel a sense of betrayal. Others, particularly women in the scene, see validation and the possibility for meaningful change in spaces where power has historically gone unchecked. Social media, which once helped T.I. control the narrative, now serves as the platform for direct testimony, bypassing traditional gatekeepers entirely. The rapid accumulation of evidence and voices caught many by surprise, including T.I. himself, turning isolated stories into a collective reckoning. This unfolding saga illustrates the fragility of carefully constructed images in an era of instantaneous connectivity. Traditional strategies, curated interviews, selective appearances, strategic silence, can no longer fully contain private actions or protect a public persona. Social media has reshaped the balance of power, allowing direct testimony to bypass filters and demanding public engagement. What might once have remained obscured is now analyzed, scrutinized, and debated in real time. Ultimately, this isn't just a story about scandal. It's a study of modern media, human behavior, power, and accountability. It's about how quickly public perception can shift, how reputation can fracture under scrutiny, and how social platforms empower voices that were once muted. The T.I. situation is a perfect example of how fame, influence, and personal history collide in the digital era, producing consequences that are immediate, unpredictable, and deeply impactful. The lessons extend beyond music or celebrity culture. They speak to the vulnerabilities inherent in curated personas, the speed at which narratives can evolve online, and the broader societal demand for transparency and accountability. For T.I., what once seemed untouchable, his carefully managed image, his public evolution, has been challenged in ways that feel both unavoidable and irreversible. And for observers, fans, and critics, the story continues to evolve, a stark reminder that in the age of social media, no narrative is ever truly under one person's control. The bigger picture reveals how fragile carefully built images can become in an era of instant connectivity. T.I. once controlled the narrative through traditional channels, interviews, music, strategic silence. Social media stripped away much of that control, allowing direct testimony to bypass gatekeepers. The speed and volume of the response caught many off guard, including, apparently, T.I. himself. What started as individual stories coalesced into something larger, a challenge to the idea that past actions can be fully reframed without consequence. Whether this marks a temporary storm or a lasting shift in how T.I. is perceived will depend on how the situation unfolds next. Denials have been issued in the past, emphasizing consent among adults and dismissing coordinated attacks. Yet the persistence of voices, combined with 50 Cent's relentless amplification, keeps the pressure high. The public is left grappling with familiar tensions, separating art from artist, weighing patterns against individual claims, and questioning how much loyalty a city or fanbase owes to its icons when serious allegations surface. In the end, this moment transcends one man's scandal. It touches on broader themes: the evolution of celebrity culture, the power of collective voices in the digital age, the complexities of personal growth versus public accountability, and the enduring rivalries that shape hip-hop. T.I. built an empire on charisma, hustle, and street credibility. Now that empire faces its most personal test yet, not from external enemies, but from stories emerging from within the very community that once shielded him. The entire situation had transformed from a set of personal allegations into a cultural flashpoint. It forced difficult conversations about power dynamics in the music industry, the culture of silence that can protect influential figures, the role of social media in holding celebrities accountable, and the fine line between due process and public judgment. For T.I., the man once known as the undisputed king of the South, the pressure was unlike anything he had faced before. His carefully constructed image of growth and redemption was now under relentless scrutiny, with every past word and action being reinterpreted through the lens of the current claims. As the war raged online, the real-world consequences continued to mount. Professional relationships cooled, public support fractured. The silence from T.I.'s camp only heightened the tension, leaving room for speculation to fill every gap. Whether the allegations proved true, partially true, or ultimately unfounded, the damage to his reputation was already significant and likely long-lasting. What began as one woman's late-night live stream had snowballed into an industry-wide conversation that no one could control. The internet had declared war, and in that war, nuance was often the first casualty. Everyone was watching, everyone had an opinion, and the outcome, whatever it ultimately turned out to be, would leave a permanent mark on T.I.'s legacy and the broader Atlanta hip-hop community. People were analyzing every single word, every clip, and every tiny detail with forensic intensity. Some became convinced that this was finally the truth breaking through years of silence. Others were equally certain it was nothing more than a coordinated hit job designed to destroy a man's legacy. The scariest part was that both sides presented arguments that sounded entirely believable. That balance created an atmosphere of deep instability. Nobody knew what to trust anymore, and the ground beneath the entire conversation felt like it was shifting constantly. Right in the middle of all this noise, something small but unexpected happened that sent fresh ripples through the chaos. a former associate of T.I., someone who had remained completely silent up to that point, simply liked a post. That was it. Just one quiet like on a post that openly supported the women making allegations. Within minutes, screenshots flooded every platform. People zoomed in, circled the name, and posted captions like, "Why would they like this if it wasn't true?" Suddenly, the situation felt far more intimate. It was no longer just random online voices shouting from the outside. It now appeared that people from inside T.I.'s own circle were quietly choosing sides. That single like raised the stakes dramatically because the question shifted from who is telling the truth to something even more uncomfortable. Who is staying silent and why? Just when the pressure seemed impossible to bear, a new rumor began spreading that completely changed the stakes. Whispers emerged that something legal and official might be coming next. There were no confirmations, no leaked documents at first, just talk. Yet the rumor was strong enough to make even some of T.I.'s most vocal defenders nervous. If it turned out to be true, everything happening online would suddenly look like only the opening act. What followed could move far beyond social media and into the realm of real-world consequences that no amount of posting could control. People thought the situation had already reached its breaking point. Then everything took a turn nobody was prepared for. Late one night, when the online noise had slowed just a little and some believed things might finally begin to settle, a significant leak dropped. This was not another vague rumor or blurry screenshot. It was an actual document. The leak allegedly tied to a legal inquiry, not a full-blown case or formal charges, but something official enough to make everyone pause and say, "Wait, this just got serious." The document referenced multiple claims and multiple individuals. While names were partially redacted, there was more than enough detail for the internet to connect the dots straight back to T.I. Whether the document was 100% authentic remains hotly debated to this day. The problem was that it looked real, structured language, official formatting, and legal terminology that most casual fabricators would struggle to replicate convincingly. Once it hit social media, the reaction was immediate and explosive. People stopped merely arguing. They started panicking because the situation had crossed a dangerous line. This was no longer pure he said, she said territory. It now carried the weight of something that could produce real offline consequences, investigations, or even legal proceedings. As that fear began to build, something even stranger unfolded behind the scenes. According to multiple insider accounts, T.I. had allegedly held a private meeting. No cameras, no recordings, just a closed-door conversation with a small, trusted circle. Whatever was discussed in that room did not stay contained for long. Whispers leaked out almost immediately. People claimed he appeared blindsided by the speed and coordination of the accusations. Others said he believed the entire situation was orchestrated. Certain names that had not yet been mentioned publicly were reportedly brought up as possible players behind the scenes. Then came the single line that completely flipped the energy. "He knows who's really behind this." That statement changed everything. The narrative was no longer simply about allegations against T.I. It had transformed into a high-stakes chess game. Who moved first? Who was controlling the flow of information? Who stood to benefit the most from the collapse of his public image? Once that idea took hold, people began looking at every detail through a new lens, especially at one particular figure. Suddenly, all eyes shifted back to 50 Cent, not just as an enthusiastic commentator, but as a potential active player in the drama. There was still no hard proof, but for many the timing felt too perfect to dismiss. 50 Cent had been early to the story, amplified it aggressively, and kept it alive precisely when momentum could have faded. Fans started asking pointed questions. Was he simply reacting the way he always does, or did he know far more than he was letting on? The speculation gained traction rapidly. Then 50 Cent posted something that made the atmosphere even more unsettling. It was a short clip with no explanation and no additional context, just a simple caption that read, "Everything comes out eventually, just wait." The tone was noticeably different this time. The usual playful trolling was gone, replaced by something quieter, more serious, almost as if he possessed information the rest of the public did not. Within minutes, the post went massively viral. People were no longer passively watching the situation unfold. They were now waiting anxiously for the next drop, the next leak, the next voice, or the next piece of evidence. At this stage, everyone could sense it. The story was far from over. If anything, it felt like the very beginning of something much larger, something that could eventually pull in more names, more stories, and more secrets that were never meant to see daylight. The most chilling realization was that there were still people who had not spoken yet. According to ongoing whispers, certain individuals were carefully watching how events played out before deciding whether to come forward. The real question hanging over everything became, what happens when one of those major voices finally steps into the spotlight? If one more significant person adds their account, or if one more piece of concrete evidence surfaces, everything seen so far might suddenly look small by comparison. Trust that the next update really could change everything. After walking through all these layers, the raw allegations, the strategic amplification, the leaked document, the private meeting, and the growing suspicion around 50 Cent, it is worth taking a moment to be completely honest. After everything that has surfaced, whose side are you actually on? Do you believe this represents the truth finally emerging about T.I, a long overdue reckoning with patterns of behavior that were previously protected by power and silence? Or do you see it as a perfectly timed setup, something bigger happening behind the scenes that the public is not yet fully seeing? And then there's 50 Cent. What role is he really playing in all of this? On the surface, it might seem familiar, his usual strategy of reacting loudly, trolling strategically, and turning chaos into content. That's what he's built his reputation on, taking situations that others might fear, amplifying them, and ensuring the world is watching. But for those following the story closely, it's hard to shake the feeling that there's more beneath the surface. Does he know something we do? Has he been quietly shaping T? He narrative from behind the scenes, manipulating timing and deciding exactly how and when the public should see what they see. The speculation alone fuels a frenzy. This story is far from resolved, far from it. There are too many unanswered questions, too many missing pieces, and far too many people who have not yet stepped forward. Each day brings new details. An old clip surfaces, a post resurfaces, or a whispered insider account hits the feeds. The narrative can shift instantly with a single leak, a single interview, or a single overlooked document. And when it shifts, it changes everything, from how fans perceive T.I to how the music industry interprets loyalty, power, and accountability. For anyone who has been following this saga from the start, the pace is dizzying. One day, the story seems contained. The next, the floodgates open, and the ripple effects are felt worldwide. Every post is dissected, every video clip is analyzed, and every minor detail sparks hours of debate. Fans, critics, and industry insiders alike speculate, theorize, and argue over intent, timing, and meaning. And in a story like this, where power, reputation, and public perception collide, every second matters. Missing one detail could change the way the entire narrative is understood. The role of 50 Cent is particularly fascinating in this context. He's never just an observer. His commentary isn't casual or incidental. When he steps into a situation, there's purpose behind it. He understands the dynamics of perception, the influence of timing, and the power of audience attention. So when he began reposting clips, amplifying certain moments, and hinting at larger projects like a documentary, he didn't just escalate the drama. He ensured the story would reach an unprecedented scale. His actions transformed what might have remained a tense local discussion into a nationwide spectacle. Whether he is exploiting the chaos, exposing truths, or strategically orchestrating the narrative, the results are undeniable. Attention is fixed, stakes are higher, and nothing will be allowed to fade quietly. Meanwhile, T.I.'s carefully curated public persona is being tested like never before. For years, he has portrayed himself as a mentor, a responsible family man, a figure who has grown wiser with experience. He has carefully built an image of accountability, showing that the recklessness of his past is behind him. But the current situation challenges that narrative at its core. It forces both supporters and critics to reassess everything: the music, the interviews, the public statements, and the persona he has cultivated over decades. Questions that might have seemed abstract or theoretical are now deeply personal. How much of the public T.I. persona is genuine? Where does accountability begin and end? Who decides which stories are told and which are hidden? And yet the story doesn't unfold in isolation. Every clip that surfaces, every commentary added, every post shared has real consequences. Relationships, careers, and reputations are all at stake. The narrative is no longer just entertainment. It has become a live social experiment, a test of loyalty, judgment, and public perception. The audience is not passive. People are invested, analyzing every development, debating ethical boundaries, and questioning the intentions behind every release. And with each new revelation, the pressure grows, both for those in the center of the storm and for those watching from the outside. The unpredictability of what might come next adds a layer of urgency that is almost unbearable. Will the next release provide clarity, finally resolving the lingering questions? Or will it escalate matters even further, introducing new revelations that intensify scrutiny and debate? If more content continues to emerge, and silence persists from those at the center, the narrative could spiral further, spilling over from digital platforms into real-life consequences. Careers could shift, reputations could be permanently altered, and relationships, both personal and professional, could be redefined in ways that were never intended. This is why staying engaged matters. Following every update, analyzing each new development, and contextualizing the moves of those involved is critical to understanding the full story. Every post, every leak, every video matters. A single document, a single testimony, or a single clip could flip perceptions, force reassessment, and redefine the conversation. The speed and intensity of the unfolding events mean that missing even a moment risks losing crucial context. And in a story where timing and narrative control are everything, context is everything. The public response has been as polarized as the events themselves. On one side, there are those demanding transparency, arguing that truth, no matter how uncomfortable, must be revealed. On the other side, there are those questioning the ethics of exposure, wondering if some moments should remain private, and if boundaries have been crossed. Social media amplifies every reaction, every debate, and every speculation, creating a feedback loop that pushes the story forward, faster and further than anyone might have anticipated. And in the middle of this, the key players remain largely silent. T.I. has not yet offered a definitive public response. 50 Cent continues to orchestrate the flow of content, and other voices that might provide context or clarification have yet to fully step forward. That silence creates tension, fuels speculation, and ensures that the story continues to evolve in real time, with the audience left to piece together the narrative as best they can. Every comment, every repost, every reaction online contributes to the ever-shifting landscape, and every observer becomes part of the process of determining how this saga is understood. One thing is undeniable: this story is far from over. The chess pieces are still moving. More voices are waiting to speak. More content is likely to emerge. And the next development, whether it's a clip, a post, or a public statement, has the potential to rewrite everything that has come before. Every revelation has consequences, and the final chapters of this saga may look very different from the story we think we are reading today. At the center of it all is a lesson about power, influence, and the fragility of carefully constructed narratives. Fame does not shield individuals from accountability. Influence does not prevent scrutiny. And in the digital age, where information travels faster than ever, control over one's public image is increasingly tenuous. T.I.'s situation demonstrates how rapidly perception can shift and how small leaks or posts can have monumental effects. 50 Cent's role underscores the fact that in today's media environment, strategy, timing, and audience manipulation are just as critical as the events themselves. Ultimately, this is more than a story about one artist or one rivalry. It's a story about the collision of personal history, public expectation, and the unforgiving nature of digital culture. It's a reminder that narratives are never static. They evolve, mutate, and are shaped by every observer, every commentator, and every participant in the conversation. And as this chapter continues to unfold, the stakes grow higher, the tension becomes more intense, and the final outcome remains impossible to predict. Whether this ends in full accountability, partial vindication, or something more complex, the impact is already clear. Loyalties have shifted, reputations have been tested, and the narrative has captured the attention of millions. Every move from here on out will matter. Every revelation, every response, and every silent moment will contribute to how this saga is remembered. And if you've been following from the beginning, you know one thing for sure. Missing a single moment could mean missing the key to understanding the story in its entirety. So stay alert, watch closely. The next twist could change everything. The story is still being written, and its final form may look very different from what anyone expects. Power, silence, strategy, and unpredictability continue to collide in the public arena. Every decision made by T.I., 50 Cent, and the surrounding voices shapes the path ahead. And one thing is certain. No matter how this ends, this saga has already left an indelible mark on hip-hop, celebrity culture, and the digital age itself.